Welcome to Voices for Mental Health. Real people, real stories, real hope. I'm your host, Candace Schoner, and today we are going to talk to Anne Xavier, a burn survivor and single mother of 2 boys, about her healing journey and mission to help others struggling with life adversity. Welcome back, Charlie, to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, for those who didn't see our last episode with you, can you briefly share background on the accident that happened and how it changed your life?
Absolutely. I actually had an accident, a very freak accident, a little over 3.5 years ago, where I was involved in a flash fire. And it left me with burns on 85% of my body to the 3rd and 4th degree. And of course, in the blink of an eye, I went from a very active stay-at-home mom of 2 boys, one who was 8 months at the time and another 4, to being in the ICU for 6 months, and then went on from there to go to rehab. For me, it was really difficult as well because a lot of people are fortunate enough to walk off the burn unit, but I was in a wheelchair and was unable to stand. And so I had to go through the rehabilitation of gaining back a lot of my physical abilities, and as well as the challenges of having to adapt to the fact that there will always be limitations.
I think in the dictionary under resilience, it should have your name. Very impressed with your story and your courage to get through all this. So what I would like to know, or the first question I have for you is, what did you learn about yourself during your recovery?
Well, I don't want to say that I learned. I'm continuing to learn. Self-acceptance is probably the biggest challenge that I face daily. Patience as well. I have definitely learned to have more patience, and just compassion for others, for myself, just accepting the fact that it will always be a journey, and it will be not always an easy one, and it's a constant effort to have to move in the right direction.
Which again is admirable. You mentioned patience, and I think you said patience with yourself and with others. Is that correct?
That's correct. When you go from being able to do everything yourself and a very type A person to having all of your liberties stripped from you and having to depend 24/7 on the care that you receive from others, it is definitely eye-opening, and it allows you, if you are in the right state of mind, to accept the state that you're in, and you do have that understanding and compassion and patience for others, it can restore your faith in mankind, or it can make you the most angry person that you have ever known.
I assume you're going to therapy or seeing someone to work through all this?
I am still actually in physical therapy and occupational therapy, and I also have an amazing therapist. And I often joke to people and say that this accident allowed me to have the best therapy that I've ever received in my whole life. And I don't know that I would have received had this not happened to me.
See, that's what we love about you, your positive attitude. Now, at the time of the accident, you were married.
I was.
How long were you married, by the way?
How long? Total of 16 years.
And obviously, you're now raising your kids by yourself, so things have changed. You mentioned having round-the-clock care. Can you share a little bit about what your average day looks like?
Well, I don't have around-the-clock care anymore. I have been able to adapt and to gain mobility to a point where I don't need that as much. But I do still have people that help me. And an average day, I mean, I guess you could look at it like a mommy's helper or a house manager. There are just certain things that, I could technically do, but it would require a lot more exertion of energy for me to complete those tasks. And for somebody who's been burned 85%, you can't regulate your body temperature, and things, are more strenuous on you.
Sure.
So it really comes down to the preservation of energy. What is it? What is it task is worth me doing versus what is something that is better that I delegate? And an example of that perfectly is if I have to pick up a couple things and I'm running to, say, Trader Joe's, totally can do that on my own. It's not going to wipe me out. It's not going to destroy me and make me not able to complete physical therapy the next day. Now, a run once a month that's required to Costco, just loading that, bringing it in the house, there's just absolutely no way that I wouldn't have to cancel appointments in the following 2 days.
That is such a great way to look at it, and actually advice for anyone who is struggling with any kind of disability or mental health issue.
Exactly.
I mean, I know for myself, dealing with Parkinson's, I also have times when I am exhausted and have to parcel out my day and decide what is a priority. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Was there a turning point or an epiphany that you had during your recovery?
Well, there definitely was. To be honest, I have been in a survival mode for very long. I was told when I was hospitalized that I would be in the ICU for potentially 12 months and would never be able to stand and would be facing a life confined to a wheelchair. That was a very hard point in my life because, all of this time I was unable to see my children because of the risk of infection. And so I was struggling with the reality of, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through, what they're predicting I'm going to have to face. And also, how can I be a mom to my children? And so it's kind of strange how then when I got out of rehab, still unable to stand, I just really was determined to prove everyone wrong and gain back that ability to be a mom to my children. And then so it's kind of very ironic to then now, just a few short years later, not only did I gain mobility and am able to take care of my kids, but I'm doing it solo. So, I don't know, the planets aligned, things fell into place. I went from one moment of like sobbing because I'm like, I can't even pick up my toddler, to now I wrestle him to get him dressed at night and do all of the things that are necessary of taking care of a 4-year-old. And it just, now looking back, it seems like so much changed and progressed in such a short time.
I mean, absolutely, considering where you started.
Yes, and people said this to me, like, right now it seems like, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel and you're just going to be here forever. But I assure you, in a few short years, you're going to look back and you're going to have a hard time remembering being in such a dark place. And so many people said that to me, and it was hard for me to believe at the time, but it's very true.
So I assume you're co-parenting with your former spouse?
I am. I do have majority custody. So they're with me about 75% of the time.
How is that to be co-parenting with a former spouse?
You know, no one really knows what to expect when they go down this road. I would say that for some reason, I was not thinking that there would be someone else in the picture on the other side. And, there was a lot of anger and resentment. But I would say having that secondary person in my children's lives, have actually made co-parenting easier.
Interesting. How are your kids doing, by the way?
They're doing great. They're very, very happy. We moved to a new home over the summer in Keswick, and they love to be outside. And so I found this wonderful little country cottage on 2 acres, and they have anything a child would ever want: a zip line, a mud kitchen, a sandbox, and they're having a blast.
Do they remember the accident or how you were before? And can you share what you've told them?
So my now 8-year-old, who just turned 8, was 4 at the time of the accident, and he does remember the before. And I was actually just talking about this with my therapist about how, like, I see myself and I handle things a lot differently now than what I did even 2 years ago, um, with how I spend time with my children. And I was wondering if the same went for him. For example, I had like this innate fear of like not being able to do with them the things that I would have or would normally be doing. I was a very active, outdoorsy person. Um, I enjoyed hiking. And so that's one thing that I haven't been able to return to, because even though I am walking, I'm not as stable. And also, I can get very much overheated. So it doesn't take much for me, and I have to sit down and rest. So, and I used to go and run and play soccer and, skip rocks and cross the creek. And those are things that I can't do at this time. And I really worried that, oh, I'm not going to measure up. I'm going to be less than. But I have sort of found my stride, and my kids don't miss out on anything. And I'm very fortunate that I have so many friends in the community that understand the position that I'm in and don't even hesitate to take my kids along with them. And at first, it was painful for me. I don't want to say that it was perfectly selfish of me, but it was hard for me because I wanted to be the one to do those things with them.
Right.
But now I find fulfillment and I find joy in knowing that these opportunities are still there to them. And I can sit back and enjoy in the now the peace of knowing that my kids are fulfilled. And that makes me fulfilled.
Well, I know in our last interview, when we first started talking and we talked about the accident, you said that the children were basically your reason for living. Is that correct? In my memory correct?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they were a big part of your recovery.
They're full on a part of my recovery. I knew from a very early age that I wanted nothing more than to be a mom. And I have always had the drive to be the best mom that I could be to them. A lot of that comes from my own childhood and things that I have had to heal from, but I choose to give them the lifestyle in the childhood that I didn't have in some aspects. And they absolutely were my number one motivator and the reason for pushing through.
Sounds like you have a wonderful relationship with your children and that they are doing great. You also have a wonderful community. When you mentioned community, are you talking about friends and family, or are you talking about the burn survivor community that I know you're a part of?
All of the above. I think community is very important. I was very fortunate to have been very involved in the local community and lots of outreach, and had a really wonderful network of just completely um, selfless and considerate friends that were there to do anything and everything they could to help my family when we needed it the most. And I feel that that sense of community is still very strong. I have since found a way into the burn survivor community, and that has really helped me to find a place where I belong. And that gives me a little bit more and exactly what I need that, my local friends and other community can't exactly give me right now at this moment.
So tell us, or tell the audience a little bit more about the burn survivor community and the Phoenix Society, is that correct?
The Phoenix Society, yes. So when I was actually in ICU, I wasn't able to meet with a peer mentor support from the SOAR program is what they call it. So it's survivors offering support to the other burn survivors. I couldn't quite meet with that person right away because I was on a ventilator, and it made communicating very hard. But as soon as I was out of ICU and to step down and I was able to communicate, I was connected with somebody who had gone through a burn injury in the 80s actually, and was burned very badly in a house fire. And we immediately made a connection and we became buddies. And that person continued to visit me when I was in rehab. And it was it was something I always looked forward to. From the beginning, they saw in me that I was a very outgoing, friendly, charismatic, caring person, and knew that it was something that I would be interested in doing myself. And my life has been a little bit preoccupied at the moment, so I've had to put that side on hold. But I am looking forward to when I can actually become a peer mentor myself and help others who are going through a burn injury. We do still we're in contact constantly, and I get to see pictures of his grandbabies, and we meet up for lunch whenever I have appointments in the area. And we have gone to the World Burn Congress and have been buddies sitting side by side in all of the talks there. And it's just great to have somebody to help walk with you on your journey that understands what you've been through.
I was going to say that I think that no one else really can understand what you've been through unless they've been through something similar, and I guess specifically being burned. I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yep.
So what are your plans for the future? You did say that you are looking forward to, I guess, advocacy work with the Phoenix Society?
Absolutely. I have done a few I've had like a platform provided to me organically where I have done a few talks. A lot of it has been for medical research companies, and I've quite enjoyed that. And my kids are also enjoying that because part of the perk is, they fly me and my kids and a friend to help with the kids because the last trip was New York, and having to have a wheelchair and navigate New York with two kids is a lot. And they will do things like, send us to dinner and let us see, we went to see The Lion King and on Broadway, and that was a lot of fun. So my kids are all for this journey of me having this platform to speak about my journey. But I am very excited with connecting to the Phoenix Society. I have done a few talks with them, and my ultimate goal for the immediate future would to lead group circles, because I really like connecting with people on a more intimate, personal level.
Obviously, part of your healing is a physical healing, and you've had multiple surgeries. How has that affected your ability to take care of the kids and your own mental health?
I recently had a discovery. I was at this constant state of survival for so long.
Okay.
And trying to push towards the closest bit of normalcy that I was putting myself through a lot with constant surgeries and procedures as a way to get back to this best version of myself.
Right.
And that was actually taking away from my time and my enjoyment of just living in the moment and being with my children. And so I have chosen for this next year to take a break and to just let it be and just enjoy life.
So what would you tell others who are going through a similar struggle?
In which way? Differences in abilities or momming solo?
How about let's do both? We have time.
I mean, obviously you need to give yourself grace. Rome wasn't built in a day. Healing takes time in every sense, not just the physical, but the psychological, the emotional. And, I myself have seen so many changes. I think that I'm in a seemingly better place. And then I realize I actually have a lot more work to do. And so just that reminder that you are a work in progress. And, this is not the finished version of yourself. You will continue to grow. And, through growth, I mean, you can grow through something so horrific as I have experienced and change for the absolute better.
Well said, I have to say. And I am so glad that you are doing better. The kids are doing better. It sounds like you are on a good path on your journey and that you have a lot more to offer other people struggling. So Charlie Anne Xavier, I want to thank you for being a guest here on Voices for Mental Health, and I wish you continued mental and physical health. And to all the listeners out there, remember, you are not alone. To support burn research, learn more about burn survivors, and build safer communities, visit the Phoenix Society online at phoenix-society.org.